Advocate MP High Court. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation and sparing your valuable time to guide us today. Now, moving forward, let me first introduce Nyaya Shastra to you all. Nyaya Shastra aims to be a key hub for promoting legal excellence through a combination of research, teaching, raising awareness, and encouraging healthy competition. We are committed to advancing legal knowledge and creating a community that includes legal enthusiasts, scholars, professionals, and students. Our goal is to create a dynamic environment that fosters growth, innovation, and excellence in the legal field. Ultimately, we want Nyaya Shastra to be a leading platform that bridges the gap between academic and practical law, combining research, education, and awareness. Nyaya Shastra organizes various competitions such as judgment writing competition, drafting, moot court competition, article writing competition, and conduct webinars. For more information, you can visit our website nyayashastra.co.in or follow us on Instagram or LinkedIn. Now, without any further delay, I would now like to invite the Sakshi Kothari ma'am to commence the session.
Hello, am I audible? Is my screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So let's begin with the session. The session is talking about today POSH Act 2013. So firstly, we are discussing the phases that we will be discussing. The first, we will talk about the case law. Second, we will talk about the definitions which are involved in our POSH Act. Third, we will be talking about what are the obligations, how we have to file up a complaint for any of the provisions that has been infringing the victims or the perpetrators. Then what can be the consequences for the same. And lastly, we will be talking about that what are the ways that we can keep ourselves safe in that particular workplace. So firstly, let's talk about the introduction. Vishaka was the state of Rajasthan, which is popularly known as the Vishaka Guidelines case. I hope everyone is comfortable with the mode of English, or should I go with the bilingual? So first, we have to understand the facts of the cases of Vishaka versus state of Rajasthan. What has happened in Vishaka versus state of Rajasthan, that there was a woman named Bhabuli Devi who was being brutally gang raped. Like how she was being gang raped, though she was working in an NGO, so she went into a village. And why did she went to that village? To ban the child marriage, right? So when she entered that particular village to ban that particular child marriage, then what happened with her, that there were various political influential people present over there at that moment, and they brutally gang raped. So that's why the Vishaka versus state of Rajasthan issued that there should be some guideline for the women who are being working in a workplace and how they can be protected. Right? So majorly the case was being filed for the PIL, stating that the NGO activist, that this particular issue has been taken place and there is no redressal mechanism for this particular sexual harassment. Because when we talk about our IPC provisions or the BNS provisions, there are provisions, but there are some of the lacunas that are not been present in the IPC provision as compared to the POSH Act, right? So in that case, the Supreme Court held that there should be an opportunity to redress these type of complaints, and also the ministry made it compulsory that each and every organization should have a sheet box, so that each and every woman who has been facing this type of harassment can put up their issues or the complaint in that particular box, and that can be resolved, right? So what was the main Vishaka guidelines given? The main Vishaka guidelines were given that firstly there will be constitution of the complainant committee. If I am talking about the constitution of the complainant committee, that is saying that each and every organization who has more than 10 members has to constitute a and complaint committee, so that in case if there is any of an issue coming out for any of the sexual harassment, that can be addressed. Second is the mechanism for filing a complaint. Now the victim will not feel comfortable by stating that this is a particular situation happened with me, right? So keeping that particular mechanism as an anonymous complaint, so that the complaining committee will not get to know that who has written this particular complaint, but at the time of inquiry or the investigation, they might get to know that this particular complaint was being drafted by them. Thirdly, if I talk about what was the main guideline given, that is providing the duties for the employer. Like each and every organization is having more than 10 numbers of the new employees, but they are not aware about the POSH policies, right? So each and every year there should be a training or a capacity building program for each and every employee working in that particular organization, so that they get to know that they have to not do such type of an activities that can amount to sexual harassment. Now coming up with the definition objective of this particular POSH Act. The POSH Act has been derived from a UNCEDAW, means United Nations Center for Elimination Against Discrimination Against the Women. This convention has laid down various rules and regulations regarding the women being discriminated in each and every workplaces. But when I am talking about the POSH Act objective, so which is stating that it's a women-centric law, which is only talking about the preventing and protecting the women again any of in workplace sexual harassment. Second, we are talking about the effective redressal mechanism. Why there is an effective redressal mechanism? Because if the woman is facing this type of an issue, then if she is raising her voice against that particular situation, then it might not cause the other women facing the same, right? Because she already raised that, and that issue was being resolved, and that perpetrator got in punishment out of it. So the rest women feel safe in that working environment. So that is only the main objective of the POSH Act, that no woman shall be subjected to the sexual harassment at any workplaces. Now we talk about the key definitions of this. First, the definition is also talking about the aggrieved woman. Now, who all will be stating as an aggrieved woman? When I'm talking about an aggrieved woman, will be any ad hoc person also, will be any temporary woman also, who is only a visiting faculty in that particular university, active for 2 to 3 hours, will also be coming into this particular as an aggrieved woman. It is not like that the one who has been working for the contractual, temporary or a permanent, all these will be employed under the aggrieved woman. This is the first definition clause of the POSH Act. Second, if I talk about the most crucial one, that is the sexual harassment. The sexual harassment, they are divided into two parts. That second part, they are talking about the circumstances in which we will be treating as a sexual harassment, and the first part is talking about the what all can be constituted for the sexual harassment. If you just compare the sexual harassment with the IPC provision or the BNS provision, stating that the section 75 of the BNS, so the last clause is not been mentioned in that. That is talking about the verbal, non-verbal, or the physical conduct of that particular woman. Right? When I'm talking about these are not be included in the BNS provision, but be included in our POSH Act, because it eventually happens on the physical, verbal, or the non-verbal conduct. So we can also understand it through an example. If I'm talking about the preferential treatment, like a male boss is working in an organization and a female employee is working under it, right? Now what happens? Now the male employee asks for the sexual favors from a female employee, that if you spend a one night with me, I will give you a promotion in the role. Right? Now she has been spending one night, but at the end she didn't get the promotion. Right? Her consent was being given in that case. Right? So this is some type of a preferential treatment. You're making that particular woman make in that particular comfort so that you give her a promotion in that role. Now, if the woman is not getting a promotion in that role, that is talking about the present or the future employment status. Because at present she was thinking that if I will not be sleeping, my boss will not feel happy again apart from this, right? So in future she thought that I will get a promotion in that role, right? So these are some of the circumstances that you have to talk about it when it is amounting to sexual harassment. The first one that we talk about is a quid pro quo. That talks about consideration for consideration. If she's been sleeping with it, he has to give the promotion in that particular role. If he is not giving a promotion, then she'll file a sexual harassment case against that particular boss. Right? Second is the hostile or an intimidating work environment. If I talk about the hostile, the person might feeling isolated in that particular place, being humiliated in that particular place, that the main boss is again and again calling that female employee to work on this particular issue, work on this particular file, right? So these type of an issue can also happen. That is also amounting to a sexual harassment. When these two ingredients are being satisfied, then we can say that yes, the sexual harassment has been taken place. Now, if we talk about the act of the sexual harassment, which can be directly or indirectly be implied upon. The first is the physical contact in the advances, like you have been physically touching or trying to touch that particular woman, will be amounting to sexual harassment. Second is demand and request for sexual favors, that we already understood it. Third is sexually colored remarks. Sexually colored remarks means that you are commenting on the woman's appearances, colors, or you are just talking about the face colors also, skin colors also being talked about. The body shaming of that particular woman, these all making a sexually colored remarks are one of an example. Showing pornography, now you are sitting in a peer group, some of the boys are watching porn, and in between the woman is also being sitting, so she might feel it humiliated, right? In that case, so that is also not being doing sexual harassment. Last, if we talk about the physical, verbal, and the non-verbal. The verbal are something that by words you are speaking to that particular woman. Like if I say that my name is Sakshi, but my boss is not calling me Sakshi, he's calling me somehow the another name of mine, right? So that is what the a professional relationship is what we existing in that particular case, right? So that is also one of the act of a sexual harassment. Second, if I talk about the non-verbal conduct, means when you are not being speaking to that particular person, but the gestures are speaking something else. Like if I talk about in a peer group, you all are sitting and having a meeting, but a person or a two group of a person making such type of a drawings and showing it to the third person, and the third person is not feeling good by seeing that particular drawings, then that particular drawings will also mount to a non-verbal conduct. Like the gestures that you have been showing is not comfortable with that particular woman, so that is also mounted to an act of a sexual harassment. Unwelcome physical is right the one you have been trying to touching it. The physical contact and the advances are a bit different from the unwelcome, because sometimes it might be feeling a pleasing ones, or sometimes it might be feeling a humiliated ones. Like it depends upon the preconceived notion of that particular woman, that how she has been feeling about it, right? If she has been feeling no, it has not been, it's quite unwelcome about this, right? If a boss call me dear, thank you dear, so that is unwelcome for me. So I might say back that no sir, you can't call me dear in that case, right? So these are also some of an act of a sexual harassment. So making the session more interactive and putting some open situations. So I would say the audience or the participants to just read the situation and analyze accordingly that what can be the answer of this particular question. Anyone from the audience can answer it. Yes, anyone can answer it. Yes, Kshitija has answered that they will not be for individually. They should not shout at me by objectifying her individuality. So this situation is not amounting to the sexual harassment because shouting on a woman will not be amounting to sexual harassment, right? Because the one who has been paying you for working in that particular environment, so he wants that particular work has to be done. So he only has been talking about the work. He doesn't objectify that particular woman on appearances or something like that. Only that person talked about the incompetency in the work that was being assigned to you. So this situation has not been amounting to the sexual harassment. Now we are talking about the definition clause of a workplace, which includes any private organization. Even I might include a government, public organizations, even the schools, even the organizations. So these all are coming under the workplace definition. The colleagues, peers, employee, employer, team leader, and the team members. These all are the situations and the professional relationship which has been existing has been amounting to a workplace. If I talk about there is also provisions of an extended workplace. Though it has not been defined in the particular act, but in some of the judgments there have also talked about the extended workplace. If I talk about the extended workplace, that means If in an organization the CEO has invited all the employees as well as the employers to any of an meeting, right? Any of an birthday meeting is there, in that each and every employee as well as the employer has been invited by the CEO. Now, in that case, what has happened? The CEO will be liable if, in case any of a woman has been faced such type of a sexual risk. But why he will be liable? Because that is acting as an extended workplace in that case. Because the CEO has put up a notification stating that all the employees as well as the employer are being liable for it. Right? So, in that case, if a woman has faced such type of a sexual harassment, then this will be mounting to that particular workplace or that particular organization complaint redressal mechanism that this particular party was been happening, I was being harassed by this particular person in that party, and the CEO of that company will be liable in that situation. So this is an example for an extended workplace. Now there is a second situation, you all can read and answer it accordingly. Yes, so this situation will be mounting to sexual harassment or not. Anyone can unmute themselves and ask. Yes, so this will be mounted to the sexual harassment because cracking of an obscene jokes are coming a part of it, sexual harassment. And also if we talk about the social networking, the when you're working in a workplace, the woman doesn't want to share a social networking websites with the person who has been very restricted or unknown to that particular person. But then this can also be amounted to a sexual harassment while including obscenity in the messages were being read, right? So it is one of an example for a cyber harassment. Now we are talking about the obligations and the redressal mechanism. What are the key obligations that the employer has to follow? First is to promote a gender sensitivity at the workplace. Why gender sensitivity at the workplace? Because each and every gender has been working. If I talk about a man is working, if I talk about a woman is working, if I talk about a trans woman is also working, right? So promoting a gender sensitivity is a crucial one. Second is removing the factors creating a hostile working environment, providing a safe working environment widely disseminating an internal policy. Why we are talking about the internal policy of that particular POSH? Because prevention, prohibition, and redressal of that particular sexual harassment has to take place when the new employees are also been appointed in that, right? Fourthly, if I talk about indulging in the act that may also constitute to the sexual harassment. If such of an acts are also been there, then there are also penal consequences for that particular situation. Declaring the names and the contact details only to the internal complaint committee, because at the starting we studied about the POSH objective is to complaint filing, right? So the complaint filing is to be done within safe reporting mechanism that no one gets to know about the anonymity about that particular case that has been happened in that particular organization. Organize workshops and awareness programs for each and every employee as well as the employers, providing assistance. Like if a woman has been facing such type of an issue that she has not been able to write her particular issue, then the assistance can also be provided by the internal complaint committee. Service rules initiate the actions for the misconduct. If I talk about each and every act has been governed with the rules. So when we are reading an act, so the service rules are also been applicable to it. So if there is such type of a misconduct happening, the rules will also be applicable. The rules are mostly in the private organization because each and every private organization has their own POSH policies, how they have to deal with that particular situation, how the rules are to be governed with it. So that is the particular organization is talking about. Monitoring the timely submissions of the report. Each and every organization has to submit an annual report stating that which type of sexual harassment cases they have been dealing with. Like they have to write there was a zero tolerance policy for their anti-sexual harassment, talking about that there were 550 cases of sexual harassment, out of which the 40 were under the applications or the inquiry procedures. Rest that were being resolved by the ICC. So these type of reports have to be prepared by the internal complaint committee, publishing the statistics of the POSH Act in their annual report of that particular company. So this is one of an extract that has been taken in the year of 2017 to 18, talking about the annual report of the Tata Steel. That this particular disclosure that you have to mention that during the year the company received 24 complaints, out of which 16 were taking inappropriate action and remaining 8 were under the investigation. So these type of clauses that you have to bring up for POSH policy in that particular organization. If I talk about the employer who is acting as an employer, the management, the controlling, and the supervision. So these all are been acting as an employer. The person is charging the contractual obligations, person, board, committee responsible for the formulation of the policies. The person is charging a contractual obligation with respect to the employees. So these all you can go and approach these particular persons so that your issue gets resolved. Now, what are the consequences? Now, the woman has filed some type of a false complaint against any of a male person, stating that that male person is getting a promotion, but a female is not getting a promotion, right? So, in that particular cases, the punishment that been prescribed might be that woman get a termination in that case, might be a woman get a suspension in that case, might be she be left for any of an compensations to be paid off, like you have to pay this type of a compensation, then you can redo this particular organization, right? So these are some of the consequences that have been given under the portion if a woman has been filing a false case or in case the perpetrator is a male person. So in both the cases, the same consequences are being followed upon, that there might also be a deduction in that particular compensation payable of a debt agreed woman from the wages to the respondent. Now we are talking about the IPC provisions. In the recent time, we already know Bharatiya Nyaya Shastra has been given to enforcement. So if I talk about the outraging the modesty of the woman, in the recent of the PNS, it has been mentioned in the section number 79. word, gesture, or an act which has been insulting the modesty of a woman that we already know about it. Simple imprisonment has been given for the 3 years and shall also be liable for the fine. So these are the old IPC provision and the new is talking about the 3 years punishment. If I talk about the sexual harassment by a man, that has been given under the 75 of the BNS, talking about any of an unwelcome physical contact advances, sexually colored remarks. So these all have been included. Now you can see the difference that the last one clause is not been mentioned over here, which talked about the unwelcome physical, verbal, and the non-verbal conduct. Right? As we studied in the POSH, it was been mentioned, but in our IPC provision, it has not been mentioned. The punishment is also for the up to 3 years imprisonment with a fine or up to 1 year of imprisonment for making a sexually colored remark. Now, if I talk about the stalking, stalking has been given under the section number 78 of the BNS. Stalking that if you have been following any type of a movement after the workplace, you are following her that where she has been living, whom she has been meeting, right? So these type of activities that are creating indications of an interest in that particular movement shall also be an action for the behavior being punishable for the 3 years and shall also be liable for the fine too. If I talk about the insulting the modesty of the woman or to criminal force to the woman to intend to disrobe her, that is also mentioned under the section number 76, which is talking about including any of the sound, gestures, exhibiting any object with an intent to insult her modesty. So in that the punishment is not less than for the 1 year, but which is also extended to the 5 years or both. Depending with the new clauses that we have been added upon, the punishment has been somewhat revised in that particular situation. Now this is the situation, you all can read and answer it. Yes, so in this situation, the mystery is amounting to a sexual harassment, correctly explained in the chat boxes, talking about that a person being getting drunk and insulting the modesty of that woman is also amounting to a sexual harassment. Now we are talking about the procedure and the redressal mechanism. If we talk about the complaint, who can file that particular complaint, the one who will be face such type of an issue will be filing that particular complaint. So means the woman will be filing that particular complaint. So in that case, if that woman is unable to file that particular complaint, so she can give the consent to that particular person. Might be any of her relative, friend, co-worker, any office of the National Commission for the Women or the State Women's Commission, or any of the person who has the knowledge of that particular act, that they were also be present in that particular situation, but they have been addressing that issue, but with the consent of a woman only, the complaint will be written. If the aggrieved woman says that no, she doesn't want to file a complaint, but the co-worker says no, you have to file a complaint, so that will not be admissible unless and until the consent has been given by the. Of. Second, if I talk about the mental incapacity, that the woman has been so much traumatized, so much psychological harassment she has been faced, and she is unable to express that what has been happened to her, right? So in that cases, a qualified psychiatrist or a psychologist can also write a complaint by understanding each and every situation of that particular woman. But in this also, the consent is the main ingredient in this. If the consent has been given, then only she can write the complaint. The guardian or any kind of authority, relative, friend, special educator, psychiatrist. So when the consent has been given, that to in written, then only the complaint can be written. Now this is the situation for you all can read. In this situation, there is a two questions. The first question is saying that can Miss C file a complaint or not? Second, it is saying that whether it was a sexual harassment case or not. Does the conduct of Mr. A is amounting to sexual harassment or not? I hope everyone read the situation. The questions are given in the next slide. Okay, so Tanushri is saying that ma'am Miss Segan is allowed to file on behalf of Miss B. See, unless and until the consent has been given, then only she will be able to file. And the conduct of Mr. A is also amounting to the sexual harassment. Why it is amounting to the sexual harassment? Because it was been sending the emails. Now the emails content that was being shared was being obscene in nature. So yes, this is also amounting to the sexual harassment. Right? Now we are talking about the clause of confidentiality in this. The act is prohibiting any dissemination of any information, the content of the complaint, the identity and the address of the complainant, respondent and the witness, any information relating to the inquiry proceedings, recommendations or the actions being taken by the management to the public press or the media in any of them manner. So such type of hearings or the cases which have been resolved should be within that particular organizations. But in that case, you have to maintain some type of a confidentiality. Now you're working in such a good MNCs and you'll be facing the sexual harassment. Now they won't like that each and every employee will defame that particular organization, right? So that's why a particular time at the particular place, that particular situation has to be resolved, right? In a confidential manner, so no one gets to know about this particular issue. Now, if I talk about the ICC, that is talking about Internal Complaint Committee. In this, each and every organization who has more than 10 employees working, they have to register in one of an ICC. Internal Complaint Committee should be there. The first one should be the presiding woman, who is acting as a senior most. Second one will be an advocate who has also been resolving this type of sexual harassment cases. Third one can be any of a member stating about the cases or an NGO activist who has been dealing with the sexual harassment cases. And rest two will be an executive member. In that we are keeping it flexible that a man and a woman both can be there. So in these situations, what happens that the panel should always be odd in number because the decision which has to be given has been a final one. If we keep an even panel, it will be difficult for us because two is saying yes, two is saying no. Then it will be very difficult to give up a solution of that particular complaint. So that's why the panel is always been in the odd because three members are being compulsory that I talked about the presiding officer, the advocate, and the NGO activist who has been dealing with in such harassment cases. The rest two are the executive member, the one can be a male or a female member, depending that who has been registered in that particular internal complaint committee. So this is the procedure. The first you are going to an incident, then you are going to internal and the local committee. Now what is a local committee? Local committee is something, understand for an example that I have a branch, main office I have in Hyderabad, but the branch office is situated in Dehradun. The branch office is not having 10 employees working over there. They have only 4 to 5 employees working, but it's a branch of that particular organization. Now, in that, 4 people working in that organization has faced this type of an harassment. So that issue will be going to the Hyderabad branch. Why it will be going to the headquarters? Because the headquarters have established their internal committee. In that, they will be resolving that this particular branch is also facing the issue. So that will be registered in that headquarters. But in that case, the victim is not satisfied by the decision given by the headquarters, then they will be approaching the local committee. Local committee means jurisdictions. Like if I talk about the Dehradun, so in Dehradun only she will be going to a police station, going to a sexual harassment wing, stating that this was the decision given by my Hyderabad branch or a headquarters, but I'm not being satisfied with it. Further, you have to take up an action against it, right? So that is a local complaining committee that when she was not being satisfied with the headquarters and in Dehradun there was no establishment of an ICC, so she went to a local committee. Local committee, one role play can be done this way. Second, it can be done if an organization is having more than 10, less than 10 employees and such type of harassment has been taken place. Then it will be going to a local community. Stating that this is a particular issue, you have to resolve it because we don't have 10 employees and we can't constitute ICC in this particular situation. Then it goes to the report of inquiry. If the employer has not taken any action, then it goes to the appeal. If I talk about any of the false or the malicious complaint has been filed that we talked about, that a female has filed a malicious complaint against a male employee, stating that they're not getting a promotion in that particular role, right? She can see the promotion of that particular male employee. So there can also be a punishment for it. Actions for the misconduct that also goes to the appeal to the court or the tribunals. In such cases, the conciliation officer also plays a crucial role in this because he doesn't know the victim, neither the perpetrator. So when they don't know both of them, so what they do, they give a decision depending on the ICC, what evidences you have been produced, what are the facts of that cases, what are the sections that you have been invoking, how the situation has been arised out, and what can be a conclusion out of it. So the internal complaint committee doesn't go with the appeal to the court, it goes right into the conciliation procedure and that gets resolved. But in that case, the victim is always satisfied. Then the report of inquiry, actions by the employer, then appeal to the court take place. So this is the particular proforma or procedure for an incident of a sexual harassment. Now, if I talk about the 10 ways to know if your office has been safe, reading, you all can read this, but apart from this, you can always remember the 5 Ds that I already recommend everyone. The first one is direct. When we talk about the direct, that means if you see any particular situation happening with sexual harassment, then directly you can go and approach to that particular perpetrator. But in that case, you see that particular perpetrator is having a knife or a gun with it, right? Then you might not go, you might hesitate to go and visit that particular perpetrator, right? Then you will follow the second lead that is talking about the document. You already have a smartphone, so you might record that particular situation, right? Thirdly, if you see that this place is a very crowded place, a public community place, where a lot of people have been walking around and such type of harassment has been taking place, then you can go for a third day that is talking about the distracting that all the public gathering on them so that the victim doesn't harm that particular victim. That perpetrator doesn't harm that particular victim in that particular situation, right? So third thing is talking about the distracting. Fourth, you might also delegate your particular task. Delegating, how you will delegate it? You might call the HR professional if it is happening inside your only organization or just outside only. If you see that particular situation, then you might also call for police dialing 100 in that case, right? So in these all cases also, the 4D can also play a crucial role that is talking about the delegate. So if you just remember all these 4Ds, it will be crucial for you to understand that these are the ways where you can protect yourself, even the person when you are seeing this type of an issues that can also be protected from these if you just remember them. Now, these are some of the policy phase that each and every organization should have. Anti-sexual harassment policy, accessible, periodically updated, misconduct with the service rules, redressal of the complaint in its place, presiding of the ICC being a senior female member. Each and every member should be male and female in that particular organization. Third party representative that I talked about, the conciliation officer. Each and every information that has been given, the role redressal has to be displayed prominently. Each and every complaint that you have been accepting should be in writing, but depending now the digitalization to the safe reporting mechanism, the person can just type that particular complaint and give it to the anonymously mail to that particular HR or any of an administrative authority working in this. And last is conducting this regular workshops and the training awareness programs against any of in workplace harassments. Right? So if anyone is having any doubt, they can ask. If anyone is having any doubt,
Hello? Anyone here? Hello?
yes.
Can you please explain any whether any form to fill the for the certificate?
That the organizer would be knowing about it.
Okay, okay. Any present or anything should be done in this group?
So certificates will be provided as soon as possible.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. And please mark my name as it's CJ.
Ma'am, there are few questions in the chat box.
Yes, yes, every day. How effective is the implementation of the POSH Act in the rural areas with the parents hesitate to report a sexual offences due to the social stigma? So if I talk about the POSCO, so there is the establishment of a child welfare committee that each and every person or a student, if I talk about that they have been done such type of an act, but they didn't know that that particular act was going to amounting to an abuse of that particular person, right? So in that cases, they're not being in a rehabilitation centers, but if we talk about in the urban areas, the people are being more upfront rather than in the rural areas. So when I'm talking about in the rural areas, see, indicating the unorganized sectors. So in these unorganized sectors, there has not been such type of an rising in that particular issues. Why they are not been rising? Because there are not awareness in this particular situation. That they doesn't know that this particular act is also there that can also take place for implementation for the same. Right? So if I talk about any of the sexual offences, any of the social stigma that the persons has been facing in an unorganized sector, so there is not an effectiveness on this particular implementation. Why it has not been effectiveness? Because there is not such type of an awareness. Second is they doesn't want such type of improvement in their own infrastructure because for handling the possible cases of supporting each type of a victims, you need each and every necessary facilities. That's why each and every organizations or the universities are focusing on the free legal aid clinics. So why they do that? That they go and visit the particular nearest village nearby them and make awareness about these particular issues, right? So that they can also tell about these are the issues that they have been facing upon. Thirdly, if I talk about the training, can also be taken place in this for making an effective mechanism for that too. If I answer the second question that what are the biggest challenges faced by the police or the child welfare officers while recording the statement of a minor victim under the section 24 of the POSCO Act. If I talk about that particular recording that has been taking place, that it has also been simultaneously with the CRPC provisions too. Talking about the 164 of the CRPC that they each and every magistrate must record it exactly which was being spoken by the children without any alteration in this, right? Secondly, how the procedure has been taking place. The biggest challenge that the police has to face is that a person is not able to speak up in that particular camera. They might hesitate because it's a closed room, only a camera is being kept and you have to give up your statement. So the child mind doesn't get smooth to speak in that particular situation. So that in that case, there are some type of persons like a special educator if I talk about, they make that person comfortable in that particular environment and make the recording turn. Right? Second is the provision of the documents. If you are be producing the recording before magistrate, then the provisions of the document is also taking place that each and every statement have also been returned and each and every copy has also been given to the magistrate as a representative under if we talk about 207 of the CRPC provisions too. Thirdly, such environment is making it amicable for the children too, because children might hesitate in that particular situation that how they have to speak it up. That's why there is a well-being of a child welfare committee so that they can make the children comfortable in that particular situation, make the children secure in that situation, and then they can get to know that what was the main issue of this particular sexual abuse that has been happened. Though that person doesn't feel like to do that particular act, but it was being done by him only, but there was some of insensitivity under him. right? So these type of an issues have been addressed by the police officers, even the child welfare committee, that they have to handle it with the gender sensitivity, whether it's a female children, whether it's a male children. Anyone else who's having any doubt? I think there is no other doubt. Shall we wind up the webinar?
Thank you, ma'am, for taking the time to share your valuable insights with us. Your expertise were truly enlightening. Thank you for breaking down complex concepts into easily understandable parts. We are grateful for your patience and willingness to answer the questions. Your session has definitely enhanced the understanding of the subject. With this, I, Shambhavi Shrotriya, your host for today's program, is signing off from today's webinar.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.